First off, it's kind of a complicated question, but so essentially my role with the program is roster management, player acquisition, talent acquisition, and then now in the NIL era, how do you put a value on a player, right? So been fortunate enough to work for Coach Napier, and then previous to that, for some people who I had a tremendous amount of respect for and had the opportunity to learn from. And so our goal ultimately is to piece together the best roster we possibly can, right? There's a lot of different variables and factors that go into that. And then, like I said, now in the NIL era, putting a value on the player and how the whole piece of the puzzle comes together. So, I may be the person up here representing our department and our team in that fashion, but, it is an incredible amount of work that goes into it. It's a complete team effort from the assistant coaches to the support staff to our personnel department who have done a tremendous job since we got here, right? So it's all hands on deck. It's a true team approach, right? And it takes everybody owning their role and taking pride in their role. So,
when you get hired in December, how quickly does it all seem to start coming at you when, this program is still playing football, but you're making sure that there's still going to be players around for the next couple of months for spring football?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's probably the most challenging thing is to piece together in today's climate of college football, to piece together a class in the portal is challenging enough, right? But then doing it in a transition is even significantly more of a challenge. So there were days, where we set up a hub at my house in Gainesville with some of the guys on the personnel staff that we were bringing with us from Florida. And we set up a hub there at the dining room table and kind of just got after it and started our evaluation process, going through our list and trying to get things in order for when we did get here, right? And then you take that transition period of when you arrive here and they're still practicing there in the college football playoff. We were fortunate enough the previous staff allowed us to go to a few practices to be able to evaluate the team. And then, from there we're set up at Hotel Madison, starting our process of how do we piece this roster together? What do we have coming back? What do we feel like we can get to come back? And then what is our plan of attack going forward to make it the best roster we possibly can?
How much planning was going into it, knowing that it was only going to be one portal window this year with the spring one eliminated? Yeah,
for sure. So it puts your back up against the wall a little bit from a timing standpoint. Coach Napier talked about the disadvantages of the spring portal, which is very accurate. But there's also the flip side of that is you have to get everything right in this short 2-week window, right? So it's sped up. There is no, hey, we missed and now we can go get another player in the spring. So what we try to do, and this is what we try to do as an organization in general, especially as a personnel department, is we try to eliminate the risk, right? So really our job is risk management. How do we shrink the amount of the margin of error that we're taking and to where we're making the best sound decisions to where we don't miss on a player. So the challenges of the portal is that's happening at a rapid, extremely fast rate, right? So we in the past have been a very thorough, process-oriented, and we still are, but you have to take those systems and processes and squeeze it into a month time frame and try to make the best decisions you possibly can, right? So I think that's why it's important that we have the supports from administration to have a department that allows us to do that, and to work for a head coach who understands that side of, or that part of the operation. He values the evaluation process and the recruiting process at an extremely high level, maybe more so than other head coaches. And I think for us and for me, that's why I've been with him for 8 years now, because it allows my job to have more of an impact on the staff, and it requires the assistants to live up to a certain standard in the same fashion. So,
yeah, Coach Napier was talking about the inside-out recruiting. Could you kind of assess how you did that in the portal? You did pick up some guys like a guy like Demir Minka from Shepherd, some other guys as well.
Yeah, for sure. So we've always had an inside-out approach. Like you say, what we try to do is the 300-mile radius that Coach Napier talked about. We've done studies on it, right? So what you try to do is create a situation where a player can get in the car and in a day's time, or in a half a day's time, he can be on your campus and then return home, or a quick drive back home the next morning. So that's a lot of where our philosophy has come from. The accessibility to the players, right? So that's why this job is such a good job, a unique job, because when you draw a 300-mile radius around Harrisonburg, the amount of players that you have access to is tremendous. And so that carries over to the portal, right? They may be at a college that's outside of the footprint, but where are they from? Are they from the 300-mile radius? And then, too, in a transition year like this, you have new staff members coming in who have been at other places across the country, have recruited other players from across the country. And so you're leaning on your connections a little bit from that standpoint. But, yeah, we will truly be a inside-out core footprint. We're going to attack we have 10 core states that we're going to focus on, and we're going to attack the heck out of that and turn over every rock, right? And then from there, obviously, we'll do some things nationally, and certain positions require you to go more of a national approach, right? Quarterback, sometimes tight ends. So it'll be our strategy and our approach. And then too, you're getting a kid that this place in this area means something, and it has a certain reputation. And so, like Coach Napier said, yeah, we had 68 OVs, and 44 of them signed with us, right? That's 65%. But yeah, that's some of our approach, but a lot of that is the approach we took to selling this place, right? So the impact that this place has on people in the community, in the area, it recruits itself a little bit to a certain extent. So
Yeah, once like closer to that, like being outside that 300-mile border, how do you kind of make it feel like home? I mean, you talked about the community. Was there like any sort of events you do, anything you do on the campus in the stadium?
yeah, for sure. So I think relationships is the biggest piece, right? So when you're dealing with a kid who may not necessarily know so much about JMU or isn't from the footprint, showing them those things, showing them creating the relationships that can withstand maybe some other factors, right? So we take a team approach, like, so yeah, your position coach is going to recruit you, but so is our entire staff, right, from the top down. So yeah, it's how we kind of approach it. So.
And then just talk about just the resources you've worked with. I mean, maybe a little bit different than Florida, but I guess talk about how it's been working with the staff and having like a big group. What sounds like a big group, like 35 staff members.
Yeah, for sure. So I go back to our time in the Sun Belt previously at UL. The way we've always tried to operate, we were fortunate enough. My background and where I started was at LSU, right? And then I went to Maryland, so I'd been involved, and then also went to UTSA. So I'd been involved in programs at the highest level, and then I had been involved at UTSA, which was a startup program, and we were in years 6 or 7 of the program when I got there. So understanding how to operate, maybe not necessarily with the amount of resources, but figuring out a way how to still have the same impact. So at UL, we ran it like a Power 4 operation. Coach Napier was coming from, he had been in Alabama, he'd been at Clemson, he'd been at Arizona State. The systems and processes you create in recruiting and evaluation translate across every level. So for us, it was about implementing our process, implementing our system, and that translates no matter what level you're at, right? And so we're fortunate enough the administration here was made a decision to invest in some areas that have allowed us to have success and to build the staff that we have. And so it's been great.
How much did JMU making the college football playoff have an impact in this latest cycle when it came to building this team and selling this institution?
You can't put a price on it. To recruit to that this cycle, to recruit to the standard that's been set here, this place is all about winning. So it attracts winners, right? And so we were able to utilize that in the recruiting process. I can still remember when I think I was on the back patio at home, but Coach Napier called me whenever watching the selection show, and he was going nuts. He couldn't believe that that JMU was headed to the college football playoff, and he was so excited about the opportunity that meant, not only for the previous staff, but for us as a staff coming in, to be able to recruit to, and then to the expectation of, hey, this is the standard, right? So this isn't a one-time thing, and we're going to embrace that, and we understand that.
You talk about the standard. How do you kind of balance what kind of works for you and your staff at your previous stops, but also balancing that with what has worked here at this institution with all the historical success they've had, and not necessarily changing it since it has worked so well, but also balancing kind of what you guys want to achieve as well?
Yeah, 100%. So I think the biggest thing is when you come in during a transition and you're going to a place that has had a tremendous amount of success, you listen first, right? So even all the way down to our interns in the personnel department, we're fortunate enough to have 12 students who work with us on a day in and day out basis, who've been doing a tremendous job during the transition. Well, we met with every one of them one-on-one, and one of the things we asked them was, hey, we want to hear the things that you guys feel like you did at a high level here at JMU as a personnel department that we can learn from. And we're going to have things that we do that we believe in that'll be different, and that will adjust. But, yeah, I think that's the most important thing. Coach says all the time, success leaves behind clues, and I think that's part of our job as leaders of an organization, is to pick up on those clues and to learn and to listen. And so that'll be something that we continue to do throughout our time here.
Talk about the 65% a little bit more and hitting on that much. Obviously, Coach Napier said that's not normal.
Yeah.
Were you even surprised you guys were able to do what you did?
Yeah, I was, for sure. Just like Coach Napier said, we've been doing this a long time. To hit at 65% is extremely challenging. Especially in such a short amount of time, to have that high of a hit rate when everything's going so fast and it's up tempo. But I think, again, like we've been talking about, it speaks to the place that this is. It has an impact on people. When you pull in here at night and the stadium lights are on, I can remember our first time on campus, or even when Coach Napier came for his unofficial visit by himself, covert ops. He called me and he was like, dude, you ain't gonna believe this, man. He goes, this ain't Sunbelt. And I was like, so the place just has that place has that vibe. I think, it has an impact on people that goes beyond anything you can do or say or put into words. It's a feeling when you arrive here, and then to see the support and what this place means to the town of Harrisonburg, right, and the history and tradition here. So
You mentioned earlier about lowering the risk of missing on a guy and trying to eliminate that, or as much as you can. How do you go about that? Are there metrics that you guys look at and different things that you do, kind of getting into the nerd type of things?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a year-round process, but what I would say is what we try to do is we try to gather as much information as possible. So the evaluation process it's ongoing. It never ends, right? So if you pull up one of the folders of a player that we've recruited, there's going to be in their folder, there's going to be, there can be anywhere from 150 to 400 clips. And that's from everything from his highlight tape to his cut up to his social media clips of him running on a treadmill, of him doing positional work at his house in his backyard, from combine footage from all these different combines that they go to, from him going to different camps. So what we try to do is acquire as much information as we can from our staff. Another one that we do is our staff going out in the spring. We require them to video the practice or the workout and send that back in, and then the evaluation is ongoing, right? So the more information you could gather, the more exposures you have to them in the evaluation process, you start to eliminate the risk and build conviction towards taking a player. So there's a little more. There's a lot more detail and things that we look for and what we go into. But in a nutshell, we've been a big, height, length, speed, verified measurements, coupled with production, good tape, and then the ground level footage to verify the athletic ability, the movements, the frame, the size. So.
Yeah, you talked a little bit about history and tradition. Do you mainly mean that in terms of the football program, or do you just talk about like the broader community as well? Like, is it both of those, or like what's the mix?
Yeah, I think both. You get kind of a vibe here of how much this place, the history of this place, and what it means to the people of Harrisonburg. I think it was unique. Our first couple weeks here, school wasn't in session, and so you're going around. You're going around town. You're meeting different people, the locals of Harrisonburg that you're exposed to, and then talking to people about what this place means. You see the videos of the sellouts, the streamers, the packed stadium, game day. So all that, I think, has an impact.
Yeah, and then could you just talk about the retentions, bringing a guy back like Pedaway, he was once a 1,000-yard rusher, bringing back the starting center from last year. Just talk about what effect that had.
Yeah, for sure. So that was our first goal when we got here. We wanted people who had been a part of a successful program. And in today's day and age, and you'll see this going forward, our strategy is always to retain first, right? So we're going to try our best, and it's hard in the G5 climate to be able to retain your roster, but we're going to fight like heck to be able to retain our best players. And those guys that decided to come back instead of going elsewhere, that's going to, for us, it's tremendous to our success going forward. Not only do they bring to the locker room some of that, the standard and the expectations that were set here previously, but then to have the production on the field of somebody that is a returning player. See, the people, the cost of replacement in the portal, from what it takes to acquire a player in the portal, is you're spinning your wheels, right? You much rather retain, develop, invest into the players that do a significant job on your team. And then, and if you can do that at a high rate, you probably will have more success. So.
Do you like the balance that you guys were able to get in the portal? Obviously, you hit high, but do you feel like you were able to spread it throughout your entire team to have good depth?
Yeah, for sure. So what we did our first week on the job, we started to set our target number for each position based off of what we thought we would need, based off of who was leaving, who was coming back. And then so from there, we hit our number at each position, right? So we achieved our goals from acquiring the number at each position that we were looking for. So, yeah, I'd say so.
Talk a little bit about when you guys were at Louisiana, and because you and I and Chris were talking yesterday about you guys had 35 players in 4 years that were on an NFL roster of some sort, and that's a lot of guys over a 4-year period. Does that kind of show that this has worked the way that you guys go about the portal and recruiting guys, that what you're looking for does ultimately translate to getting to the next level? Yeah, for sure. I think our history of roster construction in the Coach Napier era, we've been able to assemble some competitive rosters and some rosters that was able to translate for guys to make it to the NFL. Like you said, we had 10 draft picks at the University of Louisiana in a 4-year period. We had another 25 undrafted free agents. Last year, we had 7 guys get drafted, and then
from Florida, we'll probably have another 7 or 8 that get drafted this year. So we also had we set a SEC record, or we led the SEC with 14 freshmen all SEC. So I think, yeah, it's our system and processes and what we've done. Coach Napier and I have been watching players for a long time together, and a lot of it is our approach and some of the things that we believe in from an evaluation standpoint, I think have translated and have worked. But look, I mean, we've got a ton of work to do, and there's always tweaks and things you're learning to improve your process and to get better. And look, at some point, it's inexact science, right? So everybody misses. I think our job is to eliminate the risk and to miss as least as possible. So
you come in here with Cliff Wood as the GM for the entire athletic department. Could you kind of explain what the structure is like and what working with him and Steven has been like?
Yeah,
so
it's
far?
been awesome. So I think when I first got here, I was telling Coach Napier, I was like, man, this is going to be incredible. So for my growth and development to be able to learn from Cliff and Steven, who have been really are ahead of where maybe some of our competition may be from that standpoint, but to learn from somebody who has had so much success as a business person, who was the CEO of CarMax. So it's been great working with them. They've been boots on the ground with us for the entire OV season. So they have a huge part of what we're doing. So his role compared to my role is, so we set the value, we evaluate the player, and then with Cliff and Steven, we have a working relationship back and forth as far as how do we execute that, and then for them, if they're comfortable from a resources standpoint with where we may value the player, right, and then so just coming up with strategies for for the rev share opportunities here at JMU, so.
Coach Napier earlier was talking about recruiting guys that have that little bit of a chip on their shoulder, and I was talking with Zach Greenberg yesterday, and that's a former Division III guy who also mentioned that, those guys coming up from lower levels have that little bit of a chip. How much, when you're evaluating talent, do you notice that and kind of maybe pinpoint on it and hone in on it?
Yeah, for sure. So it pops on the tape, right? The way a guy plays the game, the effort, the motor, the intensity that they play, it pops on tape. And then if it doesn't, when you get them here, when you're around them on a visit, when they're in front of you, when you're having conversations with them. And look, we sell that. We use that a little bit. Like, hey, man, people may have passed up on you a lot of your life, but we believe in you, and we see your ability. And a lot of the guys, may have not had opportunities to go certain places, and then now here they are at this place that was in the college football playoff, and the mentality is, I'm gonna show you, right? Like, I have a chip on my shoulder, and that's how the team, and that's how our staff is going to approach every day. I think it's very similar to maybe some of our history as a staff too, right? Is we have something to prove, and so we wake up every day thinking about that.